Welcome back to another week of the Game Changer. David Schmal here in Las Vegas, and we are thrilled to have you back. I want to thank each and every one of you who has watched the first show that we had with Mr. Rodney Allgood, who has reached out on social media, who has commented, who has called, who has texted. It's a fantastic opportunity to get to re-engage and reconnect with a lot of you, so I appreciate the support, as does the media group. It's been a fun time since we recorded last, and we have got another amazing show for you this week. I have to tell you, a lot of you asked, how are you possibly going to bring somebody else in of the caliber that Rodney is? And you just have no idea of what's in store over the next couple of months. So we're going to have a wonderful time with some incredible people, two of which I have here with me today. We have Ed and Sandy Cohen with us, two dynamic individuals. I'm not going to give any of their story away because it's extremely powerful, which is the reason why I asked them here today. But you are going to have a fantastic time learning a lot from these two incredible individuals. I first had the pleasure of meeting them when I was working for Apple. They were customers that were coming in constantly to learn. They were in our one-to-one program. They were taking all different kinds of classes, studying up on all the new technology that we had that we were offering at the time. And as we just started having conversations, we realized that we had a lot in common. More than just Apple and technology and the stuff that we were working on inside the building. So as we became very, very close friends, they became a part of our family. They've been with Karen and I through some really fun times and some really difficult times, and such a powerful story. They're incredible, incredible business leaders that are sought after around the world. People come to them looking for advice, looking for mentorship, looking for training, and they have all of that and more to offer. So you are going to get to know them personally today, but it is truly a pleasure to have you guys here. So Sandy and Ed, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having us, David. We just love being with you whenever we can.
Well, thank you very much. It's good to have you here. So we got a lot of information to cover, including football, Ed, because there's a small game this weekend with a team from Philadelphia, I think.
I forget what they're called.
Right, yeah, that's coming, so we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But
and we're from Philly.
if you don't mind, I would love for you to share your story with the audience, because I think it is one of the greatest stories that I've ever heard. You guys have such a powerful testimony to share with people. Through hardships and difficult times and triumphant times, and helping people along the way. So we're going to talk about all that and more, but if you want to kind of share your story with them and just let them get to know you a little bit better, I think they'll really enjoy what you have to offer, and they're going to learn a lot along the way.
Well, David, I think it all began a very, very long time ago, and I love the way Ed tells the story, how we met. And we're obviously married more years than you're on this planet, so Ed, tell the story to the viewers, actually how we met.
Okay, it was a Friday night in Philadelphia, and I was a freshman at Temple University Pharmacy School, and I decided to go to a Friday night dance at a neighborhood center with some friends of mine, and I was there, and Sandy was there, and we were like standing 10, 15 feet apart, and it was basically love at first sight. I was just amazed by the glow that she had coming from her, until I realized it was the light coming off her braces. That's the story I tell. But from there, we dated for 5 years, on and off, various reasons, but until we were married in 1961.
So if you do the math, we're celebrating, I can't believe it when I say it, 57 years in September.
Amazing.
To each other.
Amazing.
But of course, I was 2 when I got married and he was 4.
Well, of course.
But that's basically how we met, and this story continues. I'll let Sandy tell the rest of the story, but
right.
I will get her back on track if she goes off on a tangent.
So you jump ahead a little bit, and you guys have a thriving, growing business. You have a thriving, growing family. And so why don't you kind of share where we pick up from there?
I guess to do the Reader's Digest version, I'll fast forward to 1978. Ed, at that point in Philadelphia, had 5 pharmacies. And I was in one of the bigger stores one day, and a woman came in, a customer that I knew, and she was crying. She was so upset, and her name was Margaret, and I said, well, what's wrong? And she told me the story of how she was taking care of her mom, who had recently had a colostomy. And at the time, I didn't even know what that was. And I said, well, why are you so upset? And she said, because I don't have the money to buy the colostomy bags that I need, and I'm using rags, and I'm at the point where I'm beyond myself. So I called Pennsylvania Blue Shield, and they said the disposable bags that she needed was something that was covered both through Medicare and Medicaid. And I called the pharmacy where she was getting her products, and I introduced myself as Ed's wife, the owner of a neighboring pharmacy, and I said, I understand from Pennsylvania Blue Shield this is a covered service for 80%, and the 20% would be covered by her Medicaid. Why aren't you enlightening your patients so that they don't have to be out of pocket? Mm-hmm. And he says to me, you want that kind of business? You do it. And he hung up on me. I was horrified. How anybody could not just at least share information. And I said to Margaret, look, I'm not quite sure what you need, but can you get me the empty box? And we'll do some research. And it turned out that our Center City store that was across from Pennsylvania Hospital carried the product. And we transferred it to my store. They sent a rep from Pennsylvania Blue Shield Medicare in to show me how to fill out paperwork, and she was my first patient. 3 years later, we had a multi-million-dollar business.
That was the start.
That was the beginning. From one patient being of service, just without expecting anything in return except to offer something that nobody else would do. And that's how the business grew. When people didn't want to help someone, I said, I'll do it. It's all about being of service. And that's why I think we've remained friends for so long, because that's who you are. You and Karen both. It's all about helping others to achieve whatever it is this world has led us to be.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you guys build out this multi-million-dollar business, and it's growing, and your family's growing at the same time. So now you have children that you're adding, and your business continues to grow. So what happened?
I guess we'll fast forward to 1986. Mm-hmm. And that particular industry was changing dramatically. There was a lot of acquisitions and consolidation, and Medicare, which was probably about 80% of our business, hadn't paid us for almost a year. They owed us over $1 million in receivables.
Wow.
And yet every Friday, our 36 employees expected to get paid, even if we did not. And that was the year it turned gray. I mean, really gray from stress. To make sure we never missed a payroll. And we decided it was time to sell. And we sold to a group of private investors. A group of accountants and attorneys took over and very quickly defaulted and didn't pay us. And so began an 8-year nightmare in the court system. And Philadelphia happens to be one of the worst in the country. It took 8 years to get our day in court. And
what happened when we got it?
Well, when we were through the process, we actually spent 2 days picking a jury. It was going to be a very lengthy jury trial. And after the second day, when we finished selecting the jury, just like on TV, and I never missed an episode of LA Law because I thought I knew everything, the judge stood up and took a stack of books and just threw them on the floor and said, "Counsel in my chambers now." And they came out about an hour later, and he said, and these were his words, "The Cohens have been harmed enough. I am not going to take the state's money and time to go through a lengthy trial that the jurors will never understand. We're forcing a settlement." But of course, the settlement was so small, the only winners were the attorneys. So we were dead right.
And they were out of business. They were out of business 10 months after they terminated us, actually, back in 1986.
So we were dead right, dead broke, and $450,000 in debt. And David, we lost everything. I mean, we were living the dream. Tell them how we were living.
We were living in a 10,000 square foot house in suburban Philadelphia on the main line, which is a very prestigious area. We had a Rolls Royce, stretch limo, a live-in houseman, a cook from Grand Cayman, and it was we thought it would never end, and then
It ended.
you know what happens.
Right, right. Well, when we come back, you're going to hear how after going through what they went through and losing what they had, how the Cohens were able to turn everything back around in the face of adversity and make an incredible jump in their life. When we come back, you'll hear about it. And we're back. Thanks for coming back and joining us here with Ed and Sandy Cohen. So we've heard the tragedy and the dramatic turn that life gave you after building this incredible multi-million-dollar business and losing it all in a very horrible and traumatic way. But then things started to change a little bit for you guys. So why don't you share some of that story with them?
Yeah, well, at the age of 52 and being $450,000 in debt, you have to say, is this the way it's supposed to be? And someone gifted me a book by Dr. M. Scott Peck called The Road Less Traveled. And I'd go to bed crying, I'd wake up crying, and Eddie would hug me because I'd say, please honey, tell me I'm living a nightmare and I'm going to wake up and my life's going to go back to the way it was. And in Dr. Scott Peck's book, the very first 3 words in the book, life is difficult. But when you're going through it, it's not what you want to hear.
Right.
And as you know, if you know anyone that's ever experienced a downward spiral, what happens? It usually gets worse before it gets better. And my mom took sick with breast cancer and early Alzheimer's. And I vowed I'd never put a parent in a nursing home because I used to service them. So we brought her from South Florida to live with us. And at this point, I remember sitting in the last pharmacy before Rite Aid was taking it over. And it was a miserable winter day. And I had a space heater at my feet, and I had a muffler around my neck. And I'm sitting there crying. And I said to Ed, if we have to start our life all over again at the age of 52, I want to see the sunshine every day. And we moved to Arizona. Tiny little apartment. Think about it. From a 10,000 square foot house, all the stuff went into storage, which was there in storage how many years?
7 or 8 years.
7 or 8.
Wow.
Everything was in storage. When we finally got it out of storage, it was like Christmas. All this stuff I forgot I even had.
Unwrapping anything. It was just like Christmas.
Yeah, and shared a 9-year-old car with no air conditioning. Remember roll-up windows?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Had a few of those.
Oh, you had a few of those. And remember, Arizona, which is hotter than Vegas by about 3 or 4 degrees, and the passenger side, if you rolled it down, you had to pull it up again. So you never rolled it. That's how we lived, and brought my mother to be diapered, tube-fed, suction on oxygen 24/7 while we were going through the lawsuit. And the only reason they didn't shut off the electric was because she was on life support. But every day was a struggle. And I remember looking at Ed and saying, this is not the way it's supposed to be. Somehow, we are going to get out of this mess. There was no doubt that we were put on earth to struggle like this. And so began getting involved, like you, being in service to others. And as a result of developing my personal skills and professional skills in another profession, we were able to rebuild our lives bigger and better than it was ever before.
And that's the part that I think really, captivates a lot of people's attention because it's horrible what happened, and it's tragic, like we said. But to hear you talk about how you were able to rebuild through your own personal development, through your own growth, through some positive life changes, some of the things that we talked about in the last show, you were able to do exactly what you just said, which is not only regain it all, but regain it all plus more. And I think what people really have a hard time with in today's society is really knowing that that's possible, that it's achievable, that it's something that can be done. So when we come back, we're going to talk about how you can do that. We're going to talk about how, even in the face of adversity, you can overcome those challenges, and through personal development and growth and really changing a lot of your habits, you can actually change your entire life. So more on that when we come back. Welcome back to The Game Changer. Thanks for joining us again. And when we left, we were talking about being able to actually make a change and what that change really means for people. And I think, as I mentioned before the break, people have a hard time grasping the concept that you can actually change your circumstances. You can break bad habits. You can learn new areas of growth, a lot through personal development. So I would love for you to share what the two of you did during that time to do all of that, to make that transition from where you were, living in the apartment, taking care of your mother, having the car with the window that didn't roll back up again, to changing all of that. And through your own development, through your own personal growth, through establishing new behaviors of influence for each other, what that really meant and how you were able to do that.
And I guess we can share from the heart here, because
Absolutely.
This is really personal. And I get very emotional because I can remember going to the supermarket and having to count out loose change to be able to check out at the register. And I swore I never ever wanted to be in that situation again. And yet, people are in that situation. They are. And, it's like when I lost my dad, it was devastating. He was my best friend. And when other people lost their parent or parents, I felt bad for them, but I did not know that experience till I experienced it. And the same with our financial struggle. I mean, financial struggle in the past was, what gown am I going to wear to what, charity benefit? To be able to go to that extreme and really understand what so many people go through. And I vowed, I want to help. I want to be of service. Just like when I graduated Temple University with a degree in teaching, Martin Luther King was one of my heroes. And we're talking about 1963, I volunteered to be the first white female in an all-black school because of change. I wanted to make a difference. And that's really been our philosophy of what we do. You wanted to add something?
Yes, I wanted to add something. I guess the change started when you met Abraham
Yes.
when we were living in Phoenix, and you can expand on that.
I met a lady when we were living in Phoenix from New Jersey. So there's something about people with an East Coast connection. And she said to me, have you ever heard of the teachings of Abraham? And I thought she was going into some religious cult conversation. And no, it has nothing to do with religion. You've shared with me where you were. And she said, when I lived in New Jersey, we had a dream group. And we met every Monday night without fail for years. And I'd like to start a dream group here. And at the time we were living in Fountain Hills, Arizona. And I never missed a Monday night. I mean, it was like my therapy. And it was all about the teachings of Jerry and Esther Hicks, which is an offshoot of Think and Grow Rich. Mm-hmm. And in fact, we have a personal website where I have the PDF of their book. It's called Ask and It Is Given. That changed my life. And when I went back to Ed and told him what I was going to be doing, I thought he was going to go, oh no, this is all woo-woo stuff. He was so into it. We would practice the exercises in bed at night about the mindset and changing habits.
One of the most difficult things to do that we did, lying in bed side by side, was to keep a positive thought in our minds for 17 seconds, only 17 seconds, without having a negative thought come in. And you can't.
Isn't that amazing?
How difficult.
It is difficult,
Oh my
right?
God,
And
it was like, it took us months to be able to accomplish that.
when you think about it, especially, so fast forward to today, and just the negativity that bombards everybody, right? It's everywhere. You turn it on television, radio, print media, you just can't escape it. And for most people, it's in their pocket because they pull their phone out and it's right there front and center on their screen, right? And so it's so challenging to be able to stop and remove all of that from your mind and have the positivity and filling your mind with positive thoughts instead of allowing the negative to take over. And you're talking about just 17 seconds,
Yeah.
right?
Short time.
Short time.
And there was a period where, somebody stole a lot of money of what we had in reserve for my mother's care. And I was going to implement legal action. And Ed said, let it go. We don't need negativity, more than we've got. Just let it go. And you know what happened, David? As soon as I said, you're right, and I let those negative, angry thoughts go, positive, wonderful things started happening. So whether you believe it or not, it's about habits, it's about change, and wanting things to be better, knowing they will be better. You have to believe
You do,
that,
right?
that those habits that you're going to change, and the personal development that you're going to go through, and the people you're going to meet, like you and Karen, make a positive influence on not only where you are today, but where you're really going.
So how were you able to sharpen your skill sets during that time? So we're talking about now, the teachings of the Hicks, which phenomenal book. I've read it a couple of times. Rodney talked about Think and Grow Rich when I asked him books to read for the audience. So, how are you sharpening your skill set at that time? Going through what you went through and making the transition into a more, positive behaviors of influence that were building around you and building inside of your life. How did you continue to sharpen your skill set during that time?
Well, to be quite transparent, we obviously had to file a bankruptcy.
A couple of times.
Was just a horror story, and we can't even go into the story about what happened to the house in Philly. But what do you do at the age of 52? You have no money, no credit, no credibility left. You know who your friends are, obviously, and we couldn't count on most of our family either. And it was, someone introduced me to the profession of network marketing or multi-level marketing. And I promised Ed I would never, ever, 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 ever do it again, because I had convinced him some years before to buy $8,000 worth of water filters. That when we lost everything, we had to have Goodwill come and take them away. Mm-hmm. And he waved his finger at me. And you've never really seen Ed get angry, but boy, when he gets angry, he really, smoke comes out of his ears. And he waved his finger at me and he said, don't you ever mention network marketing again, it does not work. And I listened for many years, but I had no options. And if I could build freedom and peace of mind without a large investment except my own sweat equity, so what I did, I found people like you who were good at what they did. And I have a friend that calls it R&D, Rob and Duplicate. What were you reading? What were you listening to? And I just became a student in the car. If you remember the days of the audio cassette tapes, then transitioned to CDs. I had boxes in the car. Even if I went 10 minutes, to run an errand, the CD was playing over and over and over again, because I saw people, no offense to anyone watching, who couldn't walk and chew gum at the same time, making sick money. And I'd say, what are they doing? And what do they know that I need to do and know? And that's how it began. Just constant, I call it CANI, C-A-N-I, constant and never-ending improvement. And my father used to say that. He used to say, a day doesn't go by when you shouldn't learn something. And people don't realize that they can have whatever they want if they're willing to work on themselves, change the habits, read the books. I have so many favorites, and we put them on our personal website as well. and still listen to all this stuff over and over again today, because as a teacher I know that you only retain 17% of immediate recall. It's like when I taught the second graders the multiplication table. How do they learn? Repetition, repetition, repetition. It's the same thing for us as adults. We have to reprogram the habits, reprogram the brain to be able to live the life that you deserve to
And
live.
remember that we were transitioning from brick and mortar
Businesses.
businesses. You sell something, you make money. We had the product, you sell it, make money. Transitioning to this type of compensation plans it wasn't easy.
We
in
couldn't
the beginning-
fire people like we used to
Right.
do in our traditional business.
In the beginning, the first 3 years were very, 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 very difficult.
Learning curve. Big learning curve.
Huge.
Learning curve until, clicked.
Well, and you bring up a good point, Sandy, where I always tell people this all the time. The songs that you listen to in the car are not paying you. They're not building you up. They're not inspiring you. They're not motivating you. They're not educating you. For some people, they'll argue with that and say, well, they are motivating me. They are inspiring me. And in some way, shape, or form for them, that could be true. But the bottom line is, that's your university, right? So that's your opportunity to pour back into yourself, to pour back into your mind. And for all of you out there watching, I encourage you to find some of the stuff that you've heard us talk about over the last couple of shows and find it on audio. Download it to your mobile device, to your phone, to a tablet, whatever. Pair that with your car, sync it with your car, plug it into your car. Find the CDs online and plug them in and listen to them. The things you're listening to currently on the radio are not helping you. They're not developing you, and they certainly are not paying you. And how much better would you be by taking that time, as Sandy said, whether it's 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever your drive time is to and from where you're going, to pour back into yourself and pour back into your mind. As the old saying goes, if you empty your wallet into your mind, then your mind will fill up your wallet. So when we come back, we're going to talk about what they're doing today to stay not only on top of their game, but to continue to be game changers both professionally and personally. We'll see you in a few.